The summer of 1863 lay heavy upon New York City. The heat clung to brick and cobblestone. Ships filled the harbor, unloading crates of sugar tobacco cloth from distant ports. The avenues rattled with carts, hawkers shouted newspapers, cried headlines about Gettysburg. Yet beneath the bustle was a tension sharp enough to slice. The war had dragged on longer than many had imagined, and the Emancipation Proclamation had transformed it from a struggle for union into a crusade against slavery. Many working men, especially Irish immigrants, feared this meant thousands of freed slaves would come north to compete for labor, already scarce. Then came the Enrollment Act, passed that March. Every man between 20 and 45 was ordered to register for military service. The law seemed equal on paper, but in practice it drew blood along class lines. For the wealthy there was escape, a payment of $300 purchased exemption, or one could hire a substitute. Poor men knew no such mercy. For them, the draft meant torn families. Wages vanished, wives and children left with nothing. Crowds muttered that it was a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. On July 11th, the first draft lottery was held in the 9th District. Men gathered near the Provost Marshal's office on 3rd Avenue. Names were read aloud. Each name meant a family plunged into fear. Mothers clutched children. Men scowled, hats pulled low. Some cursed openly. The list posted to the wall bore surnames of butchers, dock workers, carters, masons, names of men who earned barely enough to keep bread on table. By evening, anger spread like a fever through taverns, boarding houses, alleys. By Sunday, the air itself felt charged like storm clouds waiting to burst. Monday, July 13th, the storm broke. A crowd swelled outside the draft office. What began as jeers turned to thrown stones. Windows shattered. Glass littered the pavement. Shouts roared. Men surged forward. Clubs swung. The provost office was stormed. Papers seized. Scattered and set alight. Flames leapt fast. Smoke poured upward. Soldiers stationed nearby tried to hold line, but were beaten back. The mob's fury multiplied as more laborers poured into streets. The building became a bonfire, a symbol of hatred against a system seen as betrayal. I pushed through throng, notebook in hand. The noise was deafening. Bells rang church towers sounding alarm. Gunshots cracked. The mob seized rails from streetcars, used them as battering rams. Wagons overturned barricades, rose in minutes, as if city itself conspired to rebellion. The air thickened with smoke and curses. Women shouted encouragement from stoops. Boys hurled stones from rooftops. A man climbed a lamppost, waving hat, screaming down with the draft. The cry echoed, taken up by hundreds, until the street shook with fury. The first victims were not officials, but neighbors. The rage turned toward black citizens. Irish laborers feared emancipation meant competition for scarce jobs. Hatred, long simmering, now erupted. A black coachman dragged from his carriage was beaten. Stripped, left in gutter, while crowd jeered. Homes of black families marked out by whispers were stormed, furniture thrown into streets, set ablaze. Churches known for harboring colored schools were broken into pews, shattered pulpits, toppled. I saw smoke rising from one sanctuary as men danced around, Blaze laughing as hymns still hung faint in rafters. By noon, the riot spread across wards. Draft offices attacked, telegraph lines cut. Streetcars toppled, police, overwhelmed officers, beaten their batons, seized, turned against them. Liquor stores looted, and bottles used as clubs. The mob intoxicated not only with drink, but with power. The city of trade and wealth had become a battlefield. By early afternoon, the mob swelled to thousands. Men poured from shipyards and brickyards, armed with clubs, axes, pistols, whatever hands could seize. Streetcars were seized and set alight, iron wheels screeching as they collapsed into sparks. telegraph wires cut so that cries for aid traveled no further than voice could carry. The metropolis isolated by its own fury. On 2nd Avenue, rioters stormed houses marked as homes of the wealthy curtains, torn chandeliers smashed, jewelry seized with drunken triumph. I saw a piano heaved from a third-story window. It shattered in the street below, and the crowd cheered as if cannon had fired victory. Into clothing shops they surged, stripping coats, trousers, shoes from mannequins until garments flew like banners above the mob. Black citizens bore worst of violence. A sailor known for working the docks was cornered by a gang of men. He begged no words could pierce their hatred. He was beaten to ground, his body dragged through filth. Children threw stones at corpse. As mothers watched, unflinching, the orphan asylum on 5th Avenue, a sanctuary for hundreds of children, became target, though matrons pleaded, though little ones cried. The mob ransacked dormitories. Flames rose windows, belched smoke. Children fled barefoot, guided by teachers through alleys, while rioters laughed. That better they starve than grow to steal labor. Police tried to stem tide. Superintendent Kennedy himself appeared only to be beaten nearly to death. His skull fractured his uniform. Torn, he was carried away. Insensible officers fought block by block, wielding clubs, until they too fell overwhelmed. Outnumbered firemen who arrived to fight flames were driven off their hoses, cut wagons overturned, whole wards smoldered, shops reduced to shells, streets filled with broken glass, iron rails, splintered carts. As evening fell, the violence thickened rather than cooled. Liquor shops looted. Men drank from barrels in street. Roaring songs, half curses, half hymns. Flames leapt across rooftops. Smoke blanketed the avenues. I climbed a tenement stair, and from window saw half the city. Glowing red sparks rose, as if a second sun had descended. Civilians cowered behind locked doors, praying mobs would pass. Soldiers absent at front lines left New York, nearly defenseless. Tuesday dawned with no peace. The mobs regrouped stronger, wider. Bridges blockaded to halt reinforcements. Rioters armed themselves with pistols, looted from pawn shops. Timbers and paving stones dragged to build barricades across avenues. Children carried stones in aprons. Women hurled bottles from rooftops when police advanced. A bell tolled in one ward, summoning men as though to church service. But congregation gathered, not for prayer, but for rebellion. The violence gained rhythm. Wealthy homes singled out by rumor of exemption. Money were attacked, furniture flung to gutters, clocks, paintings, books destroyed in bonfires. I saw a merchant's library hurled, page by page, into flames. Volumes of Shakespeare, Milton Holy Scripture consumed, while men cheered their own undoing. One man shouted, $300 or 300 curses, and crowd roared. By midday July, 14 Union soldiers arrived. Regiments recalled from Gettysburg marched into city. Weary but resolute. Bayonets, fixed cannon rolled down Broadway. The sight of veterans stiffened. Courage of police yet enraged mobs further. Shots rang, the first volleys cracked against barricades. Smoke-billowed streets churned into battlefield. The regiments that entered on Tuesday afternoon found not order, but chaos. The avenues clogged with barricades, wagons, timbers, paving stones, ripped from streets. Mobs had fortified corners, as if preparing siege. Cannon rolled forward by Union soldiers threatened to shatter these makeshift defenses. Yet the rioters stood defiant. Rocks, bottles, pistols fired from windows. Above rooftops, women shrieked. Curses poured boiling water on troops below. Children darted like shadows, carrying stones to men who hurled them against bayonets. Broadway became theater of war. Soldiers advanced, drums beating, colors flying. Their lines met with jeers, then with gunfire. Muskets cracked from alleyways. Horses reared soldiers, fired volleys. Smoke clouded the air, barricades toppled under cannon shot. Yet each block required struggle. Men fought hand to hand with clubs, knives, axes, blood pooled between cobblestones. I saw one sergeant fall pierced by iron rail, wielded like spear. The mob cheered, then scattered when cavalry charged, sabers flashing. By night the city was divided, some wards under control, others still in rebellion. I moved with column of infantry through Bowery fires. Lit sky orange buildings, gutted streets littered with debris. Corpses lay uncollected, dogs prowled rifling through refuse. A group of rioters captured in cellar were dragged into street faces pale with soot. They pleaded, yet soldiers pressed them against wall rifles leveled. Volleys rang and silence followed. Hospitals overflowed, churches turned into wards, surgeons worked sleepless. Torches smoked over operating tables, limbs piled high, carriages carried wounded by dozens. Families wailed, searching for fathers, brothers, sons missing in chaos. Some found bodies charred beyond recognition, others never found them at all. Wednesday brought escalation. Troops marched with heavier force. Artillery planted in squares, cannon muzzles pointed down avenues as warning. The mobs answered with new fury. Barricades, higher rifles seized from armories brought to bear. Skirmishes raged through afternoon. At corner of 29th Street, rioters massed 2,000 strong. They shouted liberty against tyranny, yet their liberty reeked of blood. They charged troops only to be met with grape shot. The blast tore through ranks, scattering bodies across street. Men fled stumbling through smoke, leaving shoes, hats behind. I followed detachment to Hudson docks, where mobs attempted to seize ships. Rumor had spread that arms were hidden aboard. The rioters poured onto wharves, beating sailors, smashing crates. They set warehouses aflame. Flames leapt skyward, lighting river soldiers, arrived too late to save cargo, but drove mob into water. Muskets cracked. Men leapt into river, some swimming, others sinking under weight of boots and drink. The Hudson carried away, bodies silent, witnesses drifting with tide. Throughout the city bells rang alarms, yet no fire companies dared approach unless guarded. Entire districts burned unchecked, roofs collapsed, walls fell, streets choked with smoke. The heat oppressive like furnace. I wiped soot from eyes, ears, ringing with constant musketry. The city that prided itself on commerce and culture had become battleground of hate and hunger. By Thursday, the tide turned. Reinforcements from Gettysburg poured into city regiments. Hardened by recent battle, weary yet resolute, their bayonets glinted in sun as columns marched with precision. Drums echoed through avenues. Cannon stationed at intersections, muzzles fixed on restless crowds. The authority of Union returned step by step, though each street contested like fortress. The mob still struck. Desperate blows rained on patrols. Stones hurled from rooftops, shots cracked from alleys. Yet the soldiers moved with discipline. Volleys thundered, scattering rioters. Cavalry charged, cutting through barricades. Sabers flashed. Men fled, stumbling over wreckage. The bravado of Monday melted into fear by Thursday evening. At Union Square, I witnessed confrontation. Thousands gathered banners scrawled with slogans. No draft, no Negro rule, they chanted defiant. Then artillery rolled into square horses, straining gunners steady. The muzzles lowered, and silence fell. Troops commanded dispersal. The crowd hesitated, muttered anger. Then a single volley fired above heads. The thunder broke. The mass scattered alleys swallowed them. The square cleared under iron threat. By Friday, calm returned. The draft resumed, guarded by heavy military presence. Enrollment offices reopened under watch of rifles. The city scarred but subdued. Smoke still drifted from ruins. Smell of ash clung for weeks. Families searched ruins for remnants of homes. Charred beams twisted, iron-scorched stone told story of fury quenched. The cost, vast death toll never certain. Estimates ranged from 100 to near 500. Wounded numbered thousands, black citizens hardest. Struck, many fled city, entire communities uprooted. The orphan children scattered, some never reunited. The colored orphan asylum lay blackened shell symbol of hatred. Its reach, businesses destroyed, households ruined, commerce halted for days. In Congress, debates flared. Some denounced rioters as traitors, others blamed injustice of conscription. The phrase, $300 men, became curse against wealthy who escaped service while poor bled. Yet amidst bitterness, black volunteers stepped forward to join Union regiments. Their courage refuted slanders. Their service later honored, though scars remained. For me as witness, the draft, riots revealed fracture lines deeper than any trench. It was war within war, class against class, race against race. Fear stoked by poverty, hatred fanned by rumor, exploded into streets. The Union fought Confederacy on distant fields, but also fought itself in its own avenues. Victory at Gettysburg meant little when New York burned from within. On final night I walked. Broadway littered with broken glass, burnt timbers. Silence eerie after days of tumult. Soldiers stood at corners, bayonets glistening. Smoke drifted like ghost through lamps I wrote in notebook. The Republic survived yet wounded. We have seen how injustice at home can ignite flames fiercer than cannon. If freedom is cause, it must be shared by all, or else fire will return.